Paul PESCHISOLIDO! Sheffield United's extraordinary season takes an extraordinary twist.
Listen, if you were insecure or had issues, then you would not last 1 minute, because your insecurities as soon as you walked in the door, you were insecure that you had a big nose. Your nose was getting hammered. We've done this before, lads. This is not the first time that we've come from a deficit. This happened before. We were certainly not the type that were going to lie down. Red and white shirts bouncing up and down. There's a little boy crying. You can't unsee that. It was the most emotional I'd ever felt by scoring a goal. The supporters there are amongst the best in the world. Yes. They really are. He'd be screaming and hollering while he's stripping. Ah, dude! I can't believe he said that.
Before the video starts, we would like to apologise for any audio issues you may hear in this podcast. Every effort was made to clear up all the glitches in post. However, we recognise there are some slight areas of lagging and stuttered audio, and we hope these do not detract from your enjoyment of the podcast. Enjoy.
This is the Chef United Way podcast with Ingood Nick and Hal Stewart.
Our next guest is a former Canadian striker that will be remembered forever by Blades fans, young and old, for scoring that goal in that game and celebrating in a way all of us could and would if we'd been in the same situation. We took him to our hearts. And actually, Nick, this is absolutely true. There hasn't been a favourite Blades 11 that we've done on our social media sites, which this man has not featured in. He's always in and amongst it with our favourite Blades 11. It is an honour. I've never been in there. A former manager of Burton Albion, an inductee in the Canadian Soccer Hall of Fame, and the man responsible for creating the greatest save ever witnessed in professional football. That's a fact. It is, of course, Paolo Pasquale PESCHISOLIDO.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm impressed with that. Very good. Pesh will do fine. Now you can see why they stuck with Pesh. A lot easier.
Well, in my family, we used to call you Pesche, obviously because it's short for PESCHISOLIDO. Has anyone ever called you that, or has it always been Pesh?
Yeah, the gaffer used to call me Pesky. I think it's in most of the northern clubs. The further north you go, it's always Pesche, as opposed to Pesh.
Pesche.
Down south, it's Pesche. It's the northern twang that kind of does that.
There was a guy that sat next to me on our season ticket. He used to call you Pesky Solibob.
Okay, that's better than what the Wolves fan used to call it. Wolves fans used to call it.
Well, welcome to the Chef United Way anyway. It's great to have you. It really is. As we've just said off air, we are both massive fans of you, and I don't think you'll find many Sheffield United fans that aren't massive fans of you. So thank you very much for being here.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Well, let's start with your origins in football. Surely in Canada, all your mates were into ice hockey, maybe American football, baseball, with you, because in Montreal and Toronto had baseball teams when you were growing up, basketball. How come you fell in love with the beautiful game?
It's because I had no mates. My parents, my mom, in fact, my mom, she was a bit concerned that I was a bit of a loner at school, only at 4 or 5 years old. She was desperate to get me out of the house. And obviously, I don't know if you know, but soccer, football is the biggest played sport amongst kids, even back then. As a participant sport, it's the biggest. And it's because it's cheap. Ice hockey is extremely expensive. All the equipment, the ice time you got to pay for. Football, you pair of boots, pair of shin pads, off you go. So my parents stuck me into football right from day one. I just absolutely loved it. And I stuck with it. And I was fortunate throughout my path in Canada that I was always good enough to play at the highest level. At 15, I was already chosen as a select group. They picked about 30 kids right across coast to coast to represent Canada in the Under-16 World Cup, which we were hosting. So we qualified for that through being the hosts. And I played in the Under-16 World Cup for Canada on my home turf, which was fun. And then I was involved in the Canadian program from then on in, played with the under-17s, under-19s, was involved in the Olympic team. And then at the age of, I think, 17 or 18, I was drafted in the CSL, which was the Canadian Soccer League, which was a professional league. It was probably more conference standard than anything, but I was still going to school, and I was drafted number 1 overall, played in that for a couple seasons, which kept me involved in football. Otherwise, I probably would have gone and pursued. I had scholarships to universities. I probably would have pursued ice hockey like my cousin did. He ended up playing in the NHL and winning a Stanley Cup, bless him. So that's what kept me involved in football. And then I had the opportunity to come to England through my Canadian national team manager, Tony Taylor, who brought me to Birmingham City, and the rest is history.
Brilliant. Were you good at any other kind of American Canadian sports? Were you elite level?
Elite level. I wouldn't say elite level, but obviously I played everything. I was very good at everything. I used to win in every school, and every year I was always the athlete of the year. I was in track and field. I could run. I could sprint. Basketball, which you would think there's absolutely no way, but I was even quite the basketball player. I was a point guard, so the height was an issue, but nobody could stop me because I used to just dribble through everyone. So no, I excelled in most sports, but it was football that I had a passion for, and I was exceptionally good. I'll tell you just a story. When I was younger, I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I was already playing. I think I was playing a year up already, and my poor parents would sit there on the sideline, and they'd hear people playing, saying, why is this kid playing here? Why don't they put him somewhere else? Because I would literally get the ball and just dribble through, and I'm scoring 10, 15 goals. My mom was like, he's 8. Like, would you need to put him in professional? Like let the kid play. So I wasn't very popular amongst other parents because I think I wouldn't pass the ball and I would just run straight for goals. So, yeah. What can you do?
I need to quickly tell you this before I forget it, or forget to mention it later on. I worked for the Sheffield United Superstore a very long time ago. I think it was the Triple Assault season, the 02-03 season, and your mum and dad actually came into the Superstore to buy as many Paul Peschisolido things as possible. So I was the person to take them round and show them what we got. So that was pretty nice. Yeah. That was something I went home to tell my mum and dad and stuff.
Nice. Well, they were extremely proud parents, and I'm sure they're buying shirts for the whole family back home. I'm sure if you go to Toronto, you'll still see those shirts up and around all over Toronto. I think everybody's got one now.
I really hope Nicky gave the Peschisolido family a discount.
I hope so, yeah.
I can't remember. I'm going to be honest.
Outrageous.
All I do remember is they were lovely, lovely people.
They are lovely people, to be fair. They really are.
Yeah, definitely. Is it true that you spent a year in the Juventus Academy?
I did. At 16, I was.
Wow.
I don't know if you know Roberto Bettiga, the legend of Juve. He actually played in the North American Soccer League for Toronto Blizzard. So he built up a relationship with Toronto Blizzard, and I was coming through I was actually in the first team already at Blizzard playing, and he recommended me to Juventus. He was the director of football, I think, and I flew over there, and I was a part of what they called it was like a YTS, the U team. And I was there for quite some time. I was getting homesick, in fairness, and I did kind of fall out of it. I got an injury, and I didn't want to hang around anymore. And it's a shame because I was progressing nicely. I'd even been called up to the first team when they used to play 11-a-sides. I'd been called up to play against full 11. And we're talking absolute superstars, players back then. I'm trying to think. They had the 2 Russians, Alenikov and oh God, I can't even think of their names. I think Dino Zoff was the manager. It was incredible. Going to you see their training ground. There was about 4,000 or 5,000 people. They had stands on the side of the training ground where people used to watch. 4,000 or 5,000 people. The facilities were incredible, and we're going back God knows how many years. So it was so impressive. But I got homesick, and I bottled it. And I went back home, and my dad was furious because he's a Juve fan. And he was so disappointed. He's like, you always said you wanted to be a professional footballer. You have this wonderful opportunity. You're doing really well, and you come home. What the hell's wrong with you? He literally wouldn't speak to me I think he didn't speak to me for a year. He was so distraught about the whole situation. And then, thankfully, a couple of years later, I manned up a bit and had the opportunity to go to Birmingham. I remember him saying to me, I'll see you in 2 weeks because you'll probably bottle again. I thought, that's not happening this time. It's not happening this time. And thankfully, I stuck it out.
Yeah, let's talk about that time then. So exactly how did you get from Canada to Birmingham to start the journey of professional football?
It was through Tony Taylor. Thankfully, Tony Taylor, who was the national team coach, he was also my coach at Toronto Blizzard. He was sacked from the national team, and he got a position at Birmingham City because he was friends with Terry Cooper, who was the manager at the time. And he was assistant coach, youth academy. I don't know what his actual role was, but he said to me, "This, the club's not in great financial state. They were near relegation in the first division." And he said to me, "They're desperate for a striker. I think you'll do brilliant. You have an Italian passport, so there's no issues with work permits or what have you." He said, "Get yourself over here. I've organized for you. Come for a trial and see what happens." And I flew over. I think it was a red-eye flight. I can't even remember. I flew over. I got into Birmingham Airport. He picked me up from the airport. I had no sleep at all. Straight to, I think it was Cheltenham. I think Birmingham City were playing Cheltenham in a reserve game. Off, out of his car. Still had my luggage in the back. Straight to the pitch. Got stripped up. Within 5 minutes, I scored an absolute worldie. It was a kickoff, and I think it was actually Terry Cooper's son, Mark, who passed me the ball, and I beat about 2 or 3 men and just smashed one in the corner. I remember thinking, "Wow, this couldn't go any better." 2 minutes later, I pulled up and tore my hamstring. So I thought, "Oh my God, here we go again. I'm knackered." Came off the pitch, and they said, "You tore your hamstring. You're going to be out for whatever 6 to 8 weeks." He said, "But if you can score goals like that, then you stick around." So I stuck around Birmingham, and it was very difficult because you're at a club. No one had met me apart from the few lads in the reserves the day before. You turn up, and they're looking at you, and got a funny accent and a funny haircut, wear funny clothes from Canada, and they're thinking, "What the hell did?" And I'm just sitting in the physio's room. So it was tough to kind of get yourself involved in the lads when you're sitting on a physio room for 6 to 8 weeks. Anyway, got myself fit, played in another reserve game at home, scored in that, and then signed a contract.
That's brilliant because do you think that if you didn't score that goal or didn't play very well in that first part before you got injured, it might have been a different story?
Absolutely. It's one of those sliding doors moments, and I've been really lucky in my career that things that happen, things always went in my favor, where I think I scored in almost every club I've been at on my debut. It just makes things a lot easier. So I've been very, very fortunate in that sense. And had I not scored, who knows? But thankfully I did, and still here to talk about it.
So Birmingham City, who was your manager? Who was your manager when you came over? It
was Terry Cooper. Terry Cooper was the manager. It took me a while to get into the first team because I, new to it. I had the injury and finally got into the first team. I think I might have scored in as a substitute in one of the games and then played from there on in. And he was a brilliant man, very good. He was the Leeds left back. But hard was in the generation when Leeds were unbelievable. He also played for England, so he was a great man. And then after quite some time, obviously David Sullivan bought the club. The club was in dire straits. It was owned by the Kumars, but it really was. The ground was dilapidated. We didn't have a training ground. We used to train at what we used to call Dog Park because it was literally we used to have to clean up and put the bids out as goals. It was that bad. And David Sullivan purchased the club, and then things changed. Terry Cooper went. I think it was Barry Fry who came in next, which was entertaining. He's something else, Barry. I'm sure you've heard stories of him. And things, things went from there, and then the team got relegated. I can't even remember. I think the second or third season, the team was relegated. I was their only asset, and they needed the money, and they decided to sell me. I went to Stoke. Played under Lou Macari. Sorry, it was Joe Jordan who signed me. He was sacked not too long after that. Played under Lou Macari. So it was Joe Jordan, Lou Macari. Then I was sold back to Birmingham because they got promoted. and that was under still Barry Fry. He was then sacked. So I think I was a bit of an omen. Every time someone signed me, I got sacked. Then it was on to Trevor Francis, and he was not having it. So he sold me to West Brom, and then West Brom to Fulham to Sheffield United. That's how it went.
I bet Paul Devlin would agree with you about Trevor Francis, because we interviewed him, didn't we, Hal? And he said the same thing. He said he didn't particularly like him and sold him on. So is it true that you're... Yeah. Is it true that your wife did sell you at Birmingham then?
Twice. She sold me twice. Yeah.
I love
and she'll want me to say for a profit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, she me, bought me back, and sold me again.
Were there ever any problems between you when that happened, or were you always happy?
Not at all. Not at all. You know, as a player, her job was to do the negotiating between the clubs. It wasn't really her idea. If the manager didn't want me there, then there was no point. So that's how it worked. I was disappointed when I was bought back. Birmingham were obviously on the up, and Trevor Francis came in, and I'll never forget, because I was at home, and they were interviewing for the job, and Trev turned up at our house, and I was obviously there, and it is a bit awkward because he's trying to get the job. I'm there. I think I went in a different room. I heard, and the board spoke with Trevor. And I think Karen did ask him, said, obviously my husband's here at the club. Is that going to be, you going to have a problem with that? And he went, not at all, make him captain. So anyway, he got the job. And then within about a week of him getting the job, he called me in and said, I'm bringing in Mike Newell. He's obviously a much better striker than you, so you might as well leave the club, because you'll never get a game here. And I thought, wow, okay. And I signed a 5-year contract, just.
Amen. So what else do you expect from a Sheffield Wednesday man? That's all I can say.
Yeah, we don't like him either. We don't like him either.
So anyway, that was it. It was in their best favor. It was in my. I didn't want to sit on the bench. I wanted to go and play, and an opportunity came at West Bromwich Albion. Went there and had a couple of great seasons. Again, great club, great bunch of lads. Had the opportunity to go down to Fulham, which was again, it was an exciting time. Most people thought I was crazy, because I think we were sitting second in the championship, and Fulham were a division below. But there was all this talk about Mohammed Al Fayed and this big, huge plan he had to turn Fulham into a Premier League club within 5 years. He had brought in Kevin Keegan. They were spending money left, right, and center. And I was concerned to start, because I thought, I don't know if I really want to go play a division below. But after meeting with Kevin Keegan, obviously put out the red carpet. We met at I think we were at the Ritz Hotel, where we met with Kevin Keegan. Red carpet treatment, and he sold me the plans of where the club would be and what they had in store. And it sounded ever so exciting. I wanted to be a part of that, and I was glad that I did it, and went down and again had 3 great seasons there, a couple of promotions, couple player of the seasons, and then Tigana came in, and I had the same issue with him. He just did not want to play me for no love nor money, and then that led me to Sheffield United, which turned out to be a fantastic move for me, because some of my fondest memories are at the Blaze. I lived there, formed some great friendships with players who I still talk to nowadays, and it played a big part of my life.
Yeah, some of our fondest memories as well, as Nick and I have discussed off air many times. But prior to joining the Blades, where would you say you enjoyed playing your football the most?
That's people say that. Who do you support? Where was your favorite club? And I can't say just one. I had amazing memories at every single club. I was one of these fortunate players that I was always a crowd favorite wherever I went. I was lucky that I played on some good managers. So I literally can't say that. One is so much better. They were all brilliant in their own way. Success at Fulham was fun. It was also exciting because it was a project, and it was being in London, and it was the first time you felt like an actual movie, when footballers felt like movie stars, because we got Hugh Grant turning up. We got to meet Michael Jackson. Mohammed Al-Fayed was bringing all these stars. So we had all these, gold cards through all the nightclubs and gold cards to Harrods. So that was pretty cool. But then again, Sheffield United, it was just superb. Again, we had some success. We had some real spirited performances, some amazing cup runs. So that in itself makes you remember it and love it. And again, the supporters loved me. Even like you said, even today, I still get so many messages of support from Sheffield United supporters. It makes you feel fantastic. And some of those nights down at Bramall Lane have just, they're hard to beat. So I love them all, but Sheffield United was just incredible, absolutely incredible.
I was just going to say the reason why he didn't give you a club before Sheffield United is because Sheffield United was his favourite club. 100%.
No. Listen, I had a wonderful time there. Like I said, I still speak to the lads from that era. We still chat on a regular basis, and like I said, the supporters there are amongst the best in the world. Yes. They really are.
You can say that many, many times. We might just clip that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
No, but they are. Again, when people show that the ridiculous celebration goal against Forest and they pan into the crowd, it is carnage. And it still brings the hairs on the back of my neck when I see just that one clip of behind the goal where it's just red and white shirts bouncing up and down. There's a little boy crying. You can't unsee that. It's stuff that kids' dreams are made of, and that was one of mine. And when I see that, I still get emotional seeing that today. It was, it was incredible. What a minute! Yeah. What a moment!
It feels like we should be talking about that right now, but we'll come on to it in a little bit.
I will just say, Pesh, just that goal. It's one of the memories that my dad and I have together. Because when you scored that, I hugged him so tight, and I know that I will always think of that. One day, long time away, I hope, he won't be here. I've got to be realistic. We'll all go through that. And I'm going to remember that. And that's thanks to you. So I just wanted to say that how much that means to me.
Lovely. I'm glad to hear that. It means a hell of a lot to me too.
Good.
I don't know where we go from here now after that. That was so nice. We're going to quickly kind of go in chronological order. So
okay.
In your career, before Sheffield United, we'll get onto that. Who was your favourite kind of strike partner to play with? Was it like a big bloke, obviously, for you to feed off?
Yeah, in a way, back in that day, it was kind of big man, little man. At Fulham, I had formed a really good partnership with Jeff Horsfield. Jeff wasn't your traditional big man in the flick-ons, but he was a clever footballer as well. We formed a really good partnership there. We were quite lethal. At West Brom, myself and Andy Hunt, superb. And again, he wasn't your traditional big man, so to speak. He was mobile, but we really caused a lot of problems for opposition. Let's think, what other clubs? Birmingham, I played about 357 strikers, so I can't really remember. Stoke, who did I play with? I had some time with John Gale. John Gale was your typical, big, strong, ball would bounce everywhere. You elbow people. He was your traditional old school center forward. And then Sheffield United, playing with Chief. Obviously, Chief and I probably formed the best partnership in terms of coming off the bench, because we never really got a chance to start. I don't know why Gaffer never allowed us to start together, but he was superb playing with Wayne Allison. Again, he was pretty mobile for a big guy, but we just had this telepathy. It was just one of those things that you don't know how it works, but it just works. From the very first day in training, it's going to work. Sometimes you play with a player and you try and you practice and you practice and you practice and you try to force things to work, and it gets better, but it's never perfect. Whereas Chief and I, we just, from the first day of training, it just worked. There was an over, he'd lay it off, I would shoot, he would flick it on. I just knew where it kind of was going to bounce after he had caused havoc in front of the defenders, and it would happen. So he was a joy to play with. And then at Derby County, probably one of the better ones was Gregor Raziak. him and I again, we had a superb partnership up front and scored a lot of goals amongst us. So, yeah, I had some good strike partners.
Yeah, can I just ask about Chief? Because when you said Chief, then I weren't expecting that. I was expecting you to call him Wayne Allison. I was thinking, where did Chief come from? Where did that?
I didn't know that the players think of his name. I didn't even. Yeah, God, I didn't even know his name was Wayne. It took about 3 years. By the way, Chief, what is your name? Yeah, no, everybody calls him Chief.
So he introduced himself day one, Pesh, to you as Chief, and that was it.
That was it, Chief. That'll do for me. You know, I think it's from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, the character put the ball in the basket, Chief. I think it's from the big Indian bloke that I think that's where it came from, because he was a unit, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
he was huge.
Yeah. Now, Pesh,
and a great lad, superb lad.
I think we got that impression, absolutely. This is the shirt I think of when I think of Chief as well, actually. With you, when you actually were on the not always playing, there was a time, I can't remember what it was, but when I had the first chance to meet you, you were for some reason sat in the stands, and I went up to you at half-time and I asked if you were enjoying the game, and you said you didn't really enjoy watching football back in those days. Is that actually true, that you weren't a fan of watching the game when you played it?
Yeah, you're probably right. Remember, I grew up old school with ice hockey. That was my game. I loved ice hockey. That's what I used to watch. And that's why when people say, who did you support? I'm like, I didn't really support anyone, because that comes from, your memories as a child. I never watched football because you want to be playing. You want to be involved, especially when it's your own team. The last thing you want to do is sit in the crowd and watching lads running about doing what you want to be doing. So there's a bit of jealousy. And that was the reason for it. I couldn't stand it. I wanted to be out there.
Talking about jealousy, right? I need to ask you this as a professional footballer, because whenever I was on the bench, the player in my position, I never wanted to do well, but I didn't get paid to play football. So I'm assuming that you always wanted your strike partners to score goals. Is that right?
Strike partner, the one you're
sorry, strikers who's in front of you in the team.
No, God, no. I want him to get injured, and I want him not to. You want him to. No, I'm not gonna lie. Even if he's your mate, you're like, I want you to have a stink. I want to play. And if you're gonna keep playing well, I'm not gonna get in. You want to win the game. Don't get me wrong. You want him to win, but you want Nutty to score one and Deb to score, but not the strike partner. You screw that. You want to be doing that yourself. So you want them to get injured and not score.
Can't believe
that's what you want.
The honesty.
I want to play.
The honesty.
But don't get me wrong. You want to win.
That.
You want to win at all costs, because you want to be successful. You want to be part of a successful team. But God, no, I don't want no chance. I want to get injured. I had voodoo dolls and all sorts on the back.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. So you came to Sheffield United in 2001 on loan, is that right?
That's right. Initially, it was on loan. And I think I scored on my debut on loan. I can't remember who it was against.
I can remember your debut, because you have a habit of scoring on your debut. And Saturday, the 20th of January, 2001, scoring in a 2-1 loss at West Bromwich Albion. I was there.
That was against Baggies. I always scored against the Baggies, so I knew I'd score. But yeah, that's right. Scored on my debut. Did I? I'm not sure whether I went on loan somewhere else and then came back. I think after Sheffield United, no.
I mean, I remember you had loans at Norwich, you had loans at QPR, but I feel like they were before, because you did so well on loan at the Blades. It was like, we got to sign you.
Yeah. No, you're right. I didn't enjoy it. I went to QPR, scored on my debut there. The only club I didn't was Norwich. I went to Norwich and had a bit of a stinker. And in fact, I played against Sheffield United. My last game for Norwich on loan was against Sheffield United, and I think I actually set up the winning goal, which was not great. But and then with when I went to Sheffield United, it was I wanted that was it. I loved Neil Warnock too, and you had the lads. It was probably one of the liveliest dressing rooms I'd ever been in, and I just wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted success. And you knew that under Neil that we would have success, and he was the one who sold it. He says, "Listen, I've resurrected so many people's careers," and that's what he was good at. People that had perhaps just gone down a little bit. he didn't care. He felt as though he could get the best out of him. And that's what he said to me, "I'll get you back at the top again." And that confidence that he gave me, and like I said, the dressing room banter. There was no way I was leaving. I loved it.
Okay, I'm glad you've said that because we're going to do a little, play a little game, do a little test for you, if that's all right.
Okay.
So your debut against West Brom. Can you name the team?
Oh God.
The best you can. We're not expecting 11 out of 11, including with subs as well.
Jeez. Trace was in goals.
Ding.
Yeah. Right back. No idea.
Oh, we could give you a clue, couldn't we, Nick?
Not Kozzy.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to say he's batshit crazy.
Kozzy. Who were the centre halves back then? There was so many different players that got to. Was Sandy?
Yes.
Was he left back or was centre half then?
No, he was centre half. The left back looked like me without my beard.
Rob Ullathorne.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say David Guest then.
So Zola, okay. The other centre half with Trace. Murphy? No. Sean Murphy?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, brilliantly, yeah.
Dev must have played. Paul Devon?
No.
No.
We don't even have him on the bench, actually.
Okay, must have been injured. Well, me coming must have mean someone was injured. Midfield would have been, 40.
No.
Michael Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brownie. 40 was on. On the boxer. What the hell's his name?
You're right.
Curtis. Woody. So it was Woodhouse. Wingers. Was Nutty there by that time? Peter Unlove?
You've actually got another centre midfielder as well, because I'm assuming that Michael Brown was on the right.
Right. There was three. I can't think of the other one.
Someone who was very Sheffield United. Central midfield.
No.
Played for over 10 years.
Not Jags. Jags was just a kid, man.
He was on the bench.
He might have been mixed with Jags.
What was that, sorry?
He might have been mates with Jags.
Oh, Monty. Nick Montgomery. So that was 3. And then I can't even remember who I played up front with. I have a clue.
Benin's finest.
Lauren.
Yes.
Lauren Ajafo. That's right. Played with Lauren. Lauren was good to play with. He's a good player, Lauren. I enjoyed playing with Lauren.
Underrated. The only player you actually missed out was Santos.
Oh, George. Yeah, George. I wasn't sure if he came after. Yeah. Big George. That's a big team, isn't it? Jesus. That's a scary team.
Yeah. That's a Neil Warnock team, that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good wall. I think he used to play just so he could make sure he got 4 or 5 big lads in the wall.
I'll tell you, what about that bench, though, Nick?
That bench is something else.
Go on, then. Jags.
Jags.
No, Tony was too young.
No. We've got a central defender.
Oh, you're going to make him do the bench as well, Nick? You are cool.
He sounded like he wanted to do it, but I'll run through it if you want.
Was Patrick Supo in there? He must
yes.
Have been in there. Yeah. No, that's all I can remember.
So we've got Keith Curl. I'm assuming that's Curly. David Kelly.
Curly. Yeah, Ned. Yeah.
Goose, Ullenbeek. And, that's it. Yeah, because then we've got Jags and Patrick Sufo.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
that's not a bad team.
What a fun team. And I think it leads on beautifully to the next question. You kind of already alluded to it, but what was that Blades dressing room really like in those days? And how did it compare to the others that you'd been in, like Fulham?
It was crazy. It was probably the closest to crazy gang that you could possibly imagine. The training ground was the worst training ground I think I've ever been in my entire life. It was like this dumpy, just a shed. There was 2 separate change rooms, and there was almost banter between the 2 change rooms where, don't go in that one. It was carnage. It was so un-PC as well. It was crazy. Every lads have been arrested if some of the stuff that was done then is done. I can't even go into detail because I literally will get lads. I'll get lads arrested. But no, it was just all fun. Nobody took anything too seriously. Everybody would take the mick out of everybody. The gaffer loved it. Blackie loved it as well. They loved all that banter. The staff used to get abused as well, and they'd abuse back. It was just, listen, if you were insecure or had issues, then you would not last 1 minute because your insecurities as soon as you walked in the door, if you were insecure that you had a big nose, your nose was getting hammered. So you literally, honestly, Kozzy would just find a way to. I'll just take, for example, John Harley. John Harley had this massive mole on the side of his, whether it was his chest or his back, just on his back. And out of the mole, had all these hairs coming out of it. And the first day he walks into the change room, obviously just about the end of Kozzy gets like a net or something. And he's going, I caught it! He's pretending he's got a spider on the back of his neck. So every day, poor John Harley used to come in because he would try to catch the spider. Every single day, the spider! And he would jump on it. And you're just like, if any was insecure about anything, you literally, you might as well ask for a transfer request because you were getting hammered.
Well,
but it was it was funny.
That sounds brilliant. That sounds so Kozzy. We've had a few Kozzy stories on here up to now. We want to get him on, but it's very difficult to get the guy on. He doesn't seem like he wants to come in any of these sorts of things.
What? And that's why you can't understand, because he is so nervous. Like, he can't come on camera. He's so nervous to talk to people, but he is the craziest person amongst people he's comfortable with. He's just he's crazy. The guy's absolutely, but he's hilarious with it. But he's so quiet. You would never, ever think he would be that type by meeting him, because he's very, shy, and he's crazy. Apart from the times he used to sud himself up in the showers and just walk through the front offices of Sheffield United, but just with soap suds on. So you couldn't say he was that shy. But no, he's just a great lad.
I think we're flying forward a little bit, but as we're talking about teammates, I think it's probably fitting to ask you who were your kind of best mates in the dressing room, and yeah, obviously you say it's a great dressing room to be in. So who were the culprits for like the bants and who were fun people to be around?
Is it Sheffield United we're about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, one of the big things at Sheffield United, which was different to other clubs, is there weren't cliques. There weren't little groups. Everybody was in it together. So it was not, you didn't have just one friend. It was all of it. Like, we used to come in, the training was at 11. Lads are getting in at 8 o'clock in the morning. And it was just so you could sit and have a cup of tea. And the training ground, you knew the training ground was dumb. It was just so you can come in, have a cup of tea, and have a laugh with the staff and with the players. Kozzy was hilarious. Michael Brown, they used to kind of play off each other, and Brownie and Cos. Then the likes of Deb. Deb was another crazy one. Lee Sanford had his way of being funny. Nuddy, Peter Unlove used to get absolutely massacred about his car, about everything. They used to get, and he used to just laugh. He used to just laugh at everything. He didn't have much comebacks, but so everybody had a role within it. But the biggest joker was Kozzy. Kozzy was the biggest joker.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, any games that stick out in your mind as like your favourite games for the Blades? Obviously, there was the Forest one that we're probably going to come on to in a little bit. But any others that you can think of?
Well, the derby, the local derby, was just incredible. I don't think I ever scored in one as well, which is one of my regrets. I don't think I scored in one, but they were electric. People talk about all these different derbies, but that was just one. The build up throughout the week, the supporters talking about it. You saw in the newspaper. The build up with the media. You knew it was going to be incredible, and it didn't let down. It was fierce. It really was fierce. Probably the best games you could possibly be involved in. So all those were good. The ones we won were, the ones we lost weren't, obviously. The Nottingham Forest game is still my favorite of all times, and that counts in any game. Other than that, there's not any, the cup runs whenever we beat a big boy, whether it was Leeds, whether it was who else did we beat? We beat a lot of big
Sunderland.
boys. Those were Sunderland, whoever it was. Those were always great. Any game where we used to come back from being 2 or 3 down, those were always. I can't remember the specifics. Again, my memory's not very good, but there was so many of those comebacks that people just written us off. We'd come back and we'd come back and we'd come back. We had that never say die attitude. And I think the supporters have to take a big, huge credit in that, because a lot of them, myself and Chief, were involved in. And it would kind of stem from, we would be down, maybe 2-0 down. I'd just get up, Gaffer would say, go warm up. And he would always do it at the right time. And he'd say, Pesche, go warm up. And I would run up. And as soon as I'd run up and down, the crowd would start to get excited. Then if Chief used to come out as well, you could hear it was almost them saying, Neil, put these two on. And we almost sensed it, like, we're going to go on, we're going to change this game. And it would happen. And it happened a lot of times. So, those were brilliant. I can't remember which ones. I think maybe Ipswich might have been one. I can't remember. But those all stick in my mind.
Talking about you guys getting up and warming up, did Neil ever do that to kind of make the strikers on the pitch score? Like, obviously think, we're coming off now, we better go and score a goal. And did that ever happen?
I'm sure it did. And listen, Neil Warnock would have not done it unless there was a reason for it. He wasn't off the cuff. Everything was planned. He was mind games. There are no better managers in terms of mind games than Neil Warnock. He's been in the game a hell of a long time. The reason why he's been in the game so long is he's been able to adapt. He's been able to adapt to people's characters. He reads what they need to be told to them. He reads, whether they need a bulletin, whether they need an arm on the shoulder. He was the master at that. And yeah, like you said, him getting me to warm up. First of all, he knew it would get the supporters going. Yeah, he probably thought the striker on the pitch would think, shit, I better run around, otherwise I'm being yanked. So yeah, he meticulously, I'm sure, planned all that. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, because that was him. I remember scoring a hat trick against Gillingham, which is away from home, and that is another game that I have fond memories. You score a hat trick, what absolutely brilliant, and scored a hat trick on the Saturday, and I was coming on and off as a sub most of the time. That game I happened to start because he felt as though, I don't know what he felt, but he had a reason for me starting that game. So I thought, I'm going to get a good run in the team now. Monday morning, we go up to training, and he says, Pesh, I just want to let you know, brilliant performance on the weekend. I thought, here we go, magic. Brilliant performance, great hat trick. But this Saturday, I'm not going to start you. And I was like flabbergasted. It's like he was like a Jedi, and he's like put this spell over me. He'd said a whole bunch. I can't remember what he said after that. But at the end of it, I remember thinking, okay. And he actually he somehow pointed out to me that it was just a great idea. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, cool. And I walked away, and I remember running to the lads to continue to warm. And what did he say? I went, he's not playing. He went, he's dropping you after a hat trick? You must have went crazy. And I was like, actually, no. I was kind of like thanking him by the end of it. He somehow put this spell on me. I thought, this guy's a Jedi. But and that's what he was good at. He was superb.
Was it a case of Sharon had a dream?
You know what? That's not. I'd heard that before. Absolutely, it might have been. It might have been. It might have been. I might have started against Gillingham because Sharon had a dream. Then she must have had a nightmare, and I've gone back to the bench. Who knows?
Right, okay. I'm going to take this a weird, horrible turn, and I'm going to ask you about the Pseudocreme.
You always ask them about the Pseudocreme.
I'm sorry, but
or the Anusol.
Pesh is not understanding this. Right, let's move on from that because Dev spoke about that for quite a while, and then I'd wish I'd not asked it. So we'll talk about that after.
If you jog my memory a bit.
Apparently he used to cock his leg up whilst
Neil
being
Warnock
naked.
kisses.
Neil Warnock and rub himself with Sudocreme.
That's thanks to Dev. We've got that mental image.
Ah, dude! I can't believe he said that. Yeah,
So
I must have been. But the gaffer used to he used to come in the change room, win, lose or draw, and he would strip right away. Like he'd be screaming and hollering while he's stripping. And it's hard to take a grown man like bollocking you, stark bollock naked, and he'd go in the shower and you'd still hear him going, Jags, fucking mold, you fucking. And then he would come back out, stark bollock naked, but he'd have like shampoo in his hair and he'd say, and another thing, Paddy, you fucking done this and you've done that. And then he'd go back in the shower and you hear him go, you know, he'd come back and he would do it about 10 times. But, you know, I never watched him cream himself up. But Deb's a bit of a perv, so that's something you got to take out with Deb.
Oh, brilliant.
We'll pass that message on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry for bringing that up, but we'll go back to the Nottingham Forest game.
Out my memory, that's what it is.
It did happen. You just blocked it out. So the Nottingham Forest game. Do you want to run us through what happened and kind of your take?
I still keep seeing Neil Warnock putting nannies on and kill me. Okay, where are we at? We're at Forest.
Forest.
What do you recall because you, of course, were in a totally different situation to what we were?
What do I recall? I remember the first game wasn't a great game. Finished 1-1. Brownie, the most remarkable season for a player at Sheffield United. Brownie was unbelievable that season. Everything he touched went in the back of the net. He scored a deflected free kick. Comes back to Bramall. We're thinking, we're out on our home turf. This will be a dawdle, and within 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was, 2-0 down. And it was just flat. Everything was flat. The supporters, everything. And I remember thinking, oh my God, have we done this? And to be fair to Forest, they had a good young side in their place, some really, really good stuff. And they outplayed us. They outplayed us for about 30, 40 minutes.
From a fan, can I just say, go on. Everybody being quiet and everything being flat, I think it was just shell shock. Because we probably thought exactly the same. We're going to not walk it, but we're at home. We're not losing, which obviously in a playoff semi-final, normally when you're at home, you're either losing or you've played away the first game. And I think we thought the exact same thing. Oh, we're going to beat Forest. We've been so good all season. And then being 2-0 down is like, what's happened here?
Absolutely. We were shell-shocked. We really were. But in the back of your head, you're always thinking, we've done this before, lads. This is not the first time that we've come from a deficit. This happened before. We were certainly not the type that were going to lie down and die. And then I think it was Steve I think Cabs scored the first goal, was it?
No, it was Michael Brown. I think you got it mixed up early because the first game, Brownie scored a penalty, if I'm right. And the second game, the first goal that we scored deflected. Yeah. Really Dodler that just dribbled over the line, which was.
But Pesh, I can confirm for you already. Your memory is better than Paul Devlin's.
Is that? Oh, there. That's good. I'll take that.
Yeah, take it.
I'll take that. He's Brownie scored the deflected free kick, and then the crowd started to. You could tell things were starting to change. But in fairness to Forest, they were still creating chances. I think at the time it was it Michael Johnson? Was it Michael Johnson?
David
Johnson, who was he was a handful. He was quick. He was he was hard to stop, and he was dangerous. They had a lot of pacey young players. Then Cabs, Cabs was rapid, absolutely rapid. Latched onto a ball. I think he's volleyed one or lobbed the goalkeeper into the far corner, and that was it. That was it. It was we're back in this, and the crowd were starting to go mad, and we had the extra time we went into extra time. Gaffer's like, this is, you've come back. I can't remember what he said, but I'm sure it was inspiring because he was very good with his words. Cue the second half of the extra time, and Gaffer says, "Pesh, go get warmed up. We're going into penalties, and you're going to have to take one of the penalties." And I thought, oh my word! I wasn't even a penalty. I don't even think I was a penalty taker at Sheffield United. I thought I'm going to step on the pitch and perhaps take one of the biggest penalties in the club's history. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I thought I better get a proper warm up. Anyway, puts me on with a few minutes to go. Paddy Kenny launches a ball at the pitch. It bounces. It just looks like there's no defenders around. I've got onto the ball and just ran towards goal and made a few little dummies left and right. I beat my fellow Canadian Jimmy Brennan, and then I went to play one in the front, and I've actually shanked it. I've actually shanked it off my instep, and it's just bobbled into the corner, and that's it. Then I set on the most ridiculous celebration to mankind, and embarrassed myself, but I don't care because it was the most emotional I'd ever felt by scoring a goal, and the place erupted. Like I said, that backdrop of that crowd and that boy crying, and it was just out of this world. They panned to Neil Warnock. I can remember it because I see it all the time. Warnock's like praying, and it was incredible. And then obviously we went for the second. They got one back, so it was nervy right to the end. But it was, I think at the time they said it was the biggest watched game on Sky they'd ever had because it was the most exciting fixture that the players had ever seen. And I believe it because it was what an incredible game.
Yeah, it was a mad few minutes in extra time. Karen told me that you have a photograph of the celebration. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah, someone drew one for me. A Sheffield
United.
United
Drawing.
It's a drawing of me with my shirt off, crouched down in front of the crowd.
I've seen that on your Twitter. Did you put it on your Twitter?
Someone did. I think it was on the Twitter, and then the guy sent it me.
Right, yeah, I've seen that. It's really nice. I also bought one off eBay years and years and years ago, a drawing of, I think it was just you celebrating, because my mum's a big fan of you. So I bought one for her, and she's got it up in my old room, in obviously my childhood bedroom. So, yeah, that's that. It was my favourite. It's my favourite game of all time to this day.
Yeah. Mine too.
100%.
Mine too.
Good.
We're all absolutely.
And then
you know what bothers me the most, and you're probably saying to go into the final.
That's what I was about to say.
We'd played 60, 70 games, I think 65 games. We finished third, did we not? We should have come. We should have been promoted that season because we were the best team in that division by a country mile. We were the most exciting, and we deserved it, the amount of games we had played. But we just, again, did not turn up in the first 30, 40 minutes at Cardiff. And that's heartbreaking because I would have loved that team to be in the Premier League. I really would have. Because I think we deserved that.
Yeah, that team was exciting. And also it was sad for us because you moved on to Derby County when you still had plenty in the legs. How did that all come about? That was in 2004. You were still very much a fan favourite. So I was certainly surprised that you left.
Yeah, I'll be honest. At the time, I didn't want to go, but to be honest, I played against Gillingham. Wasn't too long before I'd gone. I'd scored the hat trick, and then I got dropped. And then obviously you're thinking, I was 32, I think, or 33. I'm getting on a bit, but I wanted to finish my career at Sheffield. I loved it there, but the gaffer pulled me in, and he said, "Listen, there is some interest from Derby." He said, I'd love to say stay here. He said, but the chances are I would only be able to offer you a 1-year contract and it would be on a lot less money if you were to stay. And, you're still going to be a bit time player, which I know you're not happy with. He said, so if you want to speak to Derby County, then, by all means, I'm not going to stand in your way. And at the time I was friends with Jeff Kenna and Michael Johnson, who were at Derby, and they kept saying, this place is amazing. The facilities, great bunch of lads. And I went and met George Burley. They offered me a 4-year contract, or I think it was even a 4-year contract, more money, more this, more game time. As much as I loved Sheffield United and didn't want to leave the lads and the team for my career, I wanted to play. You want to be the first on the team sheet. And Derby were offering that, and I had to do it. I had to go. And it turned out to be a good move. Again, I had a great time at Derby. So, turned out to be a good move. And I'm one of these people that kind of never tries not to harp on the past too much, tries to look forward, and that's what I did at Derby. But yeah, it was a sad time. It was a sad time, but for me, it was the right decision.
So you went into management after playing. Burton Albion. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how it came about?
Yeah, well, I was playing with Jeff at Derby County. He moved on, and I think he became manager of St. Pat's in Ireland. And after I retired from football, he rang me. We were neighbours. He says, we can commute. You can get Ryanair flights to Ireland. You can go back and forth. So just come and give me a hand. It'd be good. You got some good contacts. I know you want to get involved. It'd be a good experience. So I went up with him, St. Pat's, for 2 or 3 months, and I really enjoyed it. It was superb. I really had a good time. But the traveling was, we have a younger family. Karen's working at West Ham, I think, at the time. It was, it's meeting in the night. It wasn't ideal. And then I heard about Burton Albion, which, it's a very close club to Derby County, knew all the people. And they were Nigel Clough had taken the Derby job. And I just thought, what a great opportunity to go get a chance to manage a club in the league. And I rang up Ben Robinson, who was the owner and chairman at the time, and just said, listen, I got some great ideas where I think I would really be an asset to Burton Albion. I'd love to sit down and have a coffee with you and talk about my ideas, and perhaps they might work for Burton, maybe they won't. And that meeting turned into another meeting, and I was offered the job, and I loved it. It was superb. It opened my eyes. It was hard work. Again, it's morning, noon, and night. Budget is so small. You're beg, borrowing, and stealing. You're using your brain, which is something as a footballer sometimes you don't use that much. You're using it for psychology. You're using it to try and organize sports science with no budget. So you're tapping into universities, asking for a hand, and it was exciting. It was fun, and I loved it. I loved working with players. What I loved about Neil Warnock was that man-to-man management. I think that's something I thought I would be good at, and tried to do it to my best ability. And we had some decent success at Burton for a few seasons. And then in the third season, it just few injuries. We sold, I think, one of our top players and just couldn't get out of a rut. And like managers, you can't win a game for 5 or 6 games, and you're in trouble. And that was the case. And was sacked and disappointed and gutted, but it was a great learning curve, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Any thoughts of going back into management?
Not really. I think I've been out a little bit too long. But when you're out, if you don't continue to study it, if you don't continue to go to games, it becomes very, very difficult. So that's not something I've pursued. I've been doing some coaching prior to this stupid COVID. I was working with the Centrepoint, which is the homeless charity, and I was going to be the England manager for the Homeless World Cup team, which I was doing training twice a week. We were working with homeless people, and we were putting on sessions at Arsenal and Chelsea, trying to put together a team that was going to compete in Finland in June last year to play in the Homeless World Cup. But unfortunately, all this happened. So I've been doing some coaching, but it's been voluntary, and it's been it's been really good. It's been eye opening, and it's helping out, and it's something that I've loved. Again, you get to meet different types of people in all sorts of different situations, and it's very sad. It's eye opening, and it really puts your life in perspective. So it's enjoyable, and hopefully, when all this subsides and goes away, that I would like to pursue that again, because I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good luck with that. And we've actually got some questions that have been submitted from our Twitter account at Sheffield United Way, if you want to submit your questions for future podcasts. This one comes from Adam. What are your memories of that David Seaman save? I mean, you must have thought you'd scored.
He must have thought he got away with it in this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've completely blocked it out of my mind. Again, devastated. It was in that incredible season. Again, that should have gone in. What do I remember? Corner kick. There's a Tongi plays it in. I think it's Pagey heads it across to Sobs. Sobs, he can say what he likes, but it's off his shin. And it's going wide of the post, but it's just a little bit behind me, a little bit in my defense. So in order to generate the power, I've got to pull my head back to get some power. And I've done that, and I've got enough contact on it, probably too much. And it's going in the back of that. And here we go. We're going to win this game, guaranteed. Here goes my celebration. I'm going to embarrass myself and do the oh my God again. But instead, this big, massive hand somehow just claws it out. And to this day, I still don't know how he's done it, because it was in. He was at the near post. He was 40 years old, for crying out loud. And he comes and he's just pawed it out. And everybody forgets about Jaggy's absolute sitter, because
it was awful. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
I always mention that.
All the stick.
Absolutely deserves loads of stick for that. You're absolutely right.
People say you missed it, or at least I got it on target. He missed it. He almost put it over the back of the stand. But like I said, he goes on to say it's his greatest save of all times, the greatest save of all times. And unfortunately, out of all the goals I scored, and I thought I had a pretty decent career, I'm remembered for the guy who missed the header against David Seaman. So there you go. Not great, but hey.
The thing was about David Seaman as well. Like you say, he was 40 years old. He was on decline. And I remember him not being that good. And then he pulls out this worldy of a save from nowhere against Sheffield United. It's typical.
I know.
Well, that doesn't help.
In fact, I've said to David, I should have got some of his wages, because he went on to get a big move to Man City after that when people said he was finished. He got another big contract at Man City. I said, you should give me 10%, because I've earned you that contract.
Yep, only fair.
He wasn't having it.
Yeah, so I've got another question here from Cop's Finest. He asks, what were your favourite places to go in the city of Sheffield?
Oh my word!
Long time ago.
Best places to go. God, they don't even exist anymore. To be honest,
were you much of a drinker? Were you much of a drinker?
I didn't mind drinking. I'm not a huge drinker. I'm still not. But I liked a night out with the lads, and on the occasion, I would have a fair bit. I'm not Dev standard, but I used to go with Dev, and you guys know Paddy, the big Sheffield United supporter. And anyway, I used to go to like the local pubs on the corner of where the Bramall Lane are, real supporters pubs, hard-nosed places. We used to go to places like Dev loved it. So I used to always tag along. We used to go and have a few beers there. It was brilliant. Nowhere up market. We like the kind of working men's places.
Yeah. Rich asks, which manager made the biggest impression on you throughout your entire career?
Wow. Honestly, I couldn't just pick one. Again, I got to thank Tony Taylor, who was my national team manager. He, coming from Canada, is it's tough to, you're a third world country in terms of football, and his coaching obviously developed me enough to give the opportunity to play in England, and then he got me the opportunity in England. So I'm forever thankful for that, because coming from Canada, that could have never happened if it was for him. While my career was going on, Neil Warnock has a huge part to play. Again, I think he's fantastic. I think his man management, like I keep pointing out, he was superb. Kevin Keegan was, again, another one whose man management was very good. He was very good at making you feel great about yourself. They all had their part to play. You know what? Even the crappy ones who I don't even want to talk about, they had their part to play as well, because you learned what not to do if you become a manager. And for example, when I was into management, you learn from the ones who were rubbish, and that was quite helpful. But Neil Warnock, he's a big, massive part of that, as is Keegan and Tony Taylor back home in Canada.
Very good, very good. From Paul S., who's the toughest defender you've ever played against? And more interestingly, who was the easiest defender to play against?
Toughest? In terms of hard, I played against Morgs a couple times when he was at Barnsley. He was awful. absolutely awful to play against because you knew he was going to leave stuff on you. He knew the ball was played. You knew he was coming through the back. Yeah, and he wasn't even wasn't horrible about it. He was kind of, you just knew it was going to happen. So he wasn't fun to play. He was awful. The worst probably is Kevin Muscat. He was awful, and his was dirty, and it was kind of cheating, and it was shame because apparently he was a great lad. Because Murph, who was mates with him, because they're both Australian, you say the best bloke ever, nicest. On the pitch, he was awful. Pull your hair, pinch you under the armpits, stomp on your toes when it was cold. I just couldn't stand playing. I knew that whenever we were playing against him, that he was gonna, and he used to love taking it out on the smaller guys as well, which makes it even worse because you think you coward. He wouldn't do it to the big ones; he'd do it to the small ones. So they were horrible. The hardest, the most difficult, was when we used to play against Mexico. And that was against Rafael Marquez, who played for Barcelona. He was unbelievable. You might as well not even turned up because he was like a thoroughbred. He was quick. He had amazing skill. He'd go around you. He was tall. He was strong. He was incredible. And you knew, to be honest, I don't think I ever got a touch when I used to play against him. So he was difficult to play against. But he wouldn't kick you. Those other ones used to kick you.
That's probably the only time Rafael Marquez is going to get a mention on one of these that we do on the Sheffield United way, to be honest. We're normally talking about players like Chris Hope and Nairo Nosworthy. But Tyrone wants to know, other than that goal, which other goal you scored for Sheffield United meant the most? And I'm thinking of a game that you played against Birmingham City where you had a particularly good afternoon.
Yeah, I scored 2. That one also, I was going to say that one. Because Trevor Francis had sold me. He made me, he said to me to the world, never forget the words about Mike Newell's obviously a much better player than you. I'm bringing him in, so you're not going to hit a game. Mike Newell and him had the worst relationship. Mike Newell fell out with him, and I think he scored about 2 goals in his career at Birmingham, whereas that season at West Brom, I think I scored 20. So I already made him 2, but I wanted, obviously you want to hurt him. Again, it was my old club, so you do feel for them. But at that time, I wanted to win that game. We went 4-2, was it, and scored 2.
4-2. Yeah.
So I was, and I think the second one was a header, and I went on a bit of a mazy after that as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that was that one that stands out in my mind. That was superb. I slept in the doghouse for about 3 days after, but oh well, it was worth it.
Definitely. Robert asks, what was the hardest part about being an international player for a country in North America when you played in England? Yeah,
that was tough. I think, the schedule for CONCACAF is ridiculous. We play about 30, 40 games a season. They have that Gold Cup as well. And back in the time when I played, money was tight for the Canadian Federation. So they used to want to fly us economy. And you're talking, you play on a Saturday, you're at Heathrow Sunday morning. Unless we were going to upgrade ourselves, and towards the end we used to, but the early days, we used to take an economy flight to, let's say, Panama, which is 13 and a half hours. You play on a Tuesday, you're on a flight Wednesday, and you're back home to play on a Saturday again. We were doing that. I was doing that kind of at least once a month, sometimes twice, for a couple of seasons, and it takes its toll. It really, injuries. I had a couple of pretty bad injuries, and it's when you're not having the proper preparation, it's not good. It really isn't good. It was tough. It was really tough. I was disappointed with the Canadian Federation because they should have done more to protect the players in Europe, and they didn't. So it was disappointing, and it made our careers very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, when your parents would have come over from Canada to the club shop, and they'd have looked around and they wouldn't have seen a lot of fans with PESCHISOLIDO on the back of their shirt. And I just wanted to explain that the reason for that is purely because in the club shop in those days, you had to pay per letter to get a name on the back of your shirt. So you see a lot more Ford, even though I don't think anyone really rated Bobby Ford.
And we're tight in Yorkshire, aren't we?
Yeah, we're tight in Yorkshire. So I just wanted to explain that was the reason. You tell them, because that was the reason.
I will tell my parents.
Now, Fletch, you might remember Fletch, because he says he once had a really good night in Bodmin nightclub with you and the whole team. Bobby Ford was certainly game for the locals that night. Don't know what that means.
Okay.
Anyway, Fletch wants to know, who was the hardest player in the Sheffield United team during your years there?
Morgs. It has to be Morgs. Morgs, even in training, kick was horrible. He really was, but he didn't mean to, or maybe he did, but he went about it, And I was always up against him. We had Warnock would have on Fridays. Some days he'd say, "Get your shin pads on." He'd put the goals in the 18-yard box and say, "Crack on." And it was like one touch, and you're trying to get out of the way of tackles as opposed to get involved. Morgs was tough. He was a hard nose. Big George Santos. He liked to tackle, as we all know. Who else? There was a few. We always. Yeah, Pagey wasn't dirty. No, Pagey wasn't too bad, but he liked to tackle. Listen, you weren't going to play in the Neil Warnock side in defense unless you'd like to tackle. Sandy was horrible as well. Lee Sanford, he'd kick you. All the defenders, even Murph again, he was another. Every center half had to kick you. Otherwise, they weren't going to play because Neil Warnock likes a hard-nosed center half. So we had so many of them. I can't. But Morgs springs to mind.
This is why Benoit Croissant didn't make it, because he went to pieces in the box. That's the only joke I could think of about a croissant.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's all played out from the back and there's no kicking involved. So you'd have loved it these days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as fans, it's rubbish to watch. When you grew up in an era when players were hard, you get kicked and then you carry on. It's crap to watch these players throwing themselves about all over the place, especially now we're in the Premier League. Well, not for long, maybe. But especially now in the Premier League and you're seeing players going down all the time. Really frustrating to watch.
Did you ever do that, Pesci? Did you ever say to referees before the game, listen, you're 5'8". Did you ever say to the ref, look, these guys, these big defenders, they're going to kick me. So, straight off the bat, they're just going to kick me. You just keep an eye on them. Give them a yellow early so they don't. Did you ever do that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was all part of the game. If you weren't getting kicked, you weren't doing your job. We never looked at it that way. But I'm the same as you. I watch the games now, and it's embarrassing. And the VAR, it's even worse because you see how badly they dive, and some of them still get fouls for it. And you think, like, if the foul doesn't make you fall over and someone contacts you and you fall, that's not a foul. Like it's ridiculous. It's absolutely, the game has gone absolutely crazy. And until they use this VAR and maybe look at some of these diving and do some type of some type of looking at these incidents when people dive and giving them bans after the fact. That's what they need to do, because it's getting crazy now. It really is.
Absolutely,
it's ruining the game.
Yeah. So nowadays, Pesh, what you up to?
At the minute, like I said, I was involved with this charity, Centrepoint, which I was helping them out. I've got a few business outside the game that keep me occupied, but at the minute, not a hell of a lot. I'm supposed to be in Canada. I have stuff that I'm doing back home, but I'm unable to fly, so it's pretty boring. Pretty boring, mate.
Well, we're just glad that you had this time to speak to us, and I think it's only right to ask this question at the end, because I want to know if you knew this, but did you know then, and do you realise now, the affection that Blades fans hold for Paul Peschisolido?
Back then, I felt the love. I'll be honest, because like I said, when I used to warm up, I'd hear it, and they would always cheer my name, regardless. Even when you're on the bench, when the crowd are cheering your name and you're on the bench, you're doing something right. So I always felt there was that affinity with the supporters, and I appreciated it and I loved it. And with social media now, I see that everyone who follows me happens to be a Sheffield United fan, so it tells you something. So yeah, it means a lot to me. It's like I said, it played a huge part of my life. Some of my best memories and the best times I had on a football pitch and off the pitch were times at United. So yeah, it's great. I love it.
Well, we've absolutely loved speaking with you, Paul Peschisolido. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your memories with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Pesh.